Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. Tonight, I have some special guests. We have Joel and Laura from the Newlydeads channel.
Hi.
I had the pleasure of meeting them online through the Mad Bloods, going back a ways now, some time ago. Or maybe I may have discovered you independently, and then I think that's what happened. Then I think like the next week, he interviewed you, and I was like, how about that?
Yeah. On the Monster Kid Origins, and then you had bought some stickers and stuff from us. So
yeah, yep, yeah. That's usually the way it works. It's kind of funny that way,
right?
But, I've enjoyed the unboxings, the coffee reviews, the snack reviews, and you still what can you tell us like where else people can find you?
Well, I mean, of course, we're on YouTube, obviously, but then if you go to the newlydeads.com, we have a podcast version of our show, Dollar Store Drive-In, that is available through Spotify and other podcasting directories. And then our Dollar Store Drive-In show, in which we go and we find movies at like the Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Goodwill, etc. And ones we've never seen before, we'll watch them and then we review them on a half-hour chat show. And that's available through Tingler Television, The Vortex, Other Worlds TV, and the Monster Channel. And then also on our website, she writes a blog about small businesses, and I write a movie review blog. So we're also artists, and we do live events and things like that. We're going to be at the Witches Market here in October. Yeah.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, where is here?
Yeah. Oh, we're in Rockford, Illinois, just an hour and a half out of Chicago.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, we're going to get to see some art in just a moment here. That is awesome. Yeah. I love the show. I got to tune in more often to Tingler Television. It is a lot of fun to watch a live show and have the chat and everything. But
that's appreciated. Thank you. And I enjoy your content. It gets me, helps me through the week, because when I see that there's a new video on Martial Arts Monday, or all of a sudden I forgot what your Friday is.
Physical Media Friday.
Physical Media Friday. That's right.
Yeah, those are the two I've sort of been cranking out no matter what, and I really try to get another review or two in during the week. Usually a horror movie. Like I actually recorded a whole video for It's Alive, and I decided not to upload it. I'll just do it again. But sometimes I'm not happy with the end result, but that's what I'm working on. But the martial arts movies have kind of taken off in the channel, and and I've got a lot of them to go through. So that's the reason I'm doing that. And of course, as far as physical media, I still got a pretty good backlog to go over. Now, let me ask you a question. At your Dollar Trees, do they still have movies or not?
They're a little harder to find than they used to, but we've started branching out to resale shops and stuff.
Okay.
So as long as it's under $5, it's a horror, thriller, or sci-fi, and then something we've never seen before.
Yeah. Sometimes we get things gifted too.
Yeah, we've had some filmmakers send us movies, and we've had friends gift us stuff, and so as long as it meets the criteria, it's okay.
Right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it seems like around here we've had a number that have closed. Well, they've relocated. They shut down temporarily, opened up down the street or a couple miles away, but with no movies.
Oh.
That's happened a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those same old movies that you were looking through were just gone. But anyway,
we hooked up with Randy from ITN Distribution, and he's been providing us movies, because they're a big distributor for Dollar General or Dollar Tree, and then I guess he told us that they were going to stop doing that.
Oh, okay.
I think that they must have been one of their main suppliers.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I know.
Yeah. Because I still got about 10 that I've never reviewed. I could still crank out a few more Dollar Tree reviews.
Yeah.
But let's just take a look at the chat. We have Nye from Nye's Bizarre Cinema saying howdy. Hi, Nye. Hope you and all the kiddies are doing well. And then we have Jim from Jim's Movie Channel. Check out his channel. He's got some great drive-in movie theater memories up now. And then we have Joe, Encyclopedia Joe. Love this movie. Yeah, Joe, can't get anything by Joe. Joe knows his stuff. We had a little conversation the other night about the main actor Tim Holt. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Nye saying hello to Joe. Yeah. So anyway, what is your sort of background with this movie? Just kind of curious. When did it come onto your radar screen, or
Well, for yourself, it would have been
Sunday. Well, no, he drew because he's been working on this. We call it his work in progress. So he's been drawing like I don't know, 100 monsters, I think, on this, mashup of monsters, and one of them was the monster from this movie.
Okay.
And so I've been staring at this image now for months, because it's been on his work in progress. And then so finally, he's like, well, we should probably get to watch this movie because we're going to talk to Mr. Dan on Tuesday. I'm like, okay. So for me, it was just this week, but for Joel,
it goes back to a Super 8 copy that my dad had on film when I was a kid.
Wow.
So I actually sent a link of the original version that they put sound back to our link to the show here. And so when I was a kid, my dad had a film projector and a screen, and then he had these little Super 8 6 or 8 minute versions of films, kind of truncated, like Reader's Digest type truncations. He had like Son of Frankenstein, The Monster Challenged the World, and a few other ones. And so that was my way of watching before we had a VCR.
Wow.
So for the longest time I thought it was just they get attacked on the boat, and then there's the scene in the lab, and then everybody goes home happy, and that's about it.
Right. You missed the dinner at the Mexican restaurant.
I know, right? I eventually saw it later when I got older, and then now I've seen it multiple times. But it's one of my favorite. Like, it was a gateway for me.
Yeah.
And the creature is still one of my favorite. Like, I have a love of B-movie monsters, and so this was kind of like the progenitor of the whole thing. You know?
Yep. Very cool. Yeah. And Jim says he can't stay, but he'll watch the replay. Thanks a lot, Jim. This was like, I would say there's like about 3 or 4 movies that kind of like scared me and like scarred me a little bit as a kid. And this was one of them. So like years later, when I stumbled on it found it on YouTube, I couldn't wait to rewatch it again to see, how I felt about it, and just to analyze what the parts that kind of scared me and kind of got under my skin. It's the monster. It's kind of an icky monster.
yeah.
The other ones, he's a little icky. He's a little gooey, and but and then of course eventually I got the Blu-ray. But it was we'll get into it, but it's like what he does to the people, and then there's a scene with an eyeball. I mean, I vividly remember sitting in my living room watching that on TV Saturday morning, and it just didn't sit well with me. You know what I mean? I didn't see that, in Godzilla movies or like it's just something about, and when he's a smaller creature, and I think for me as a kid that made it a little more threatening, a little more scary. Even
though in the original trailer he's taken down buildings.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I almost wonder if like that's. I mean, trailers have been pissing people off for decades, but I almost wonder like maybe that had something to do with why the film is underappreciated. Maybe people thought they were going to see something else.
I don't know. It
turned out to be a smaller creature, which I was fine with, but
it's definitely is a bit more excessive than your standard film from 1957. Between the eyeball scene and then the way he dispatches with people, they're both kind of shocking, and until like Herschel Gordon Lewis came along, and then everything changed. Right.
And Joe says the creature kind of reminds him of Mothra. Yeah, I could see that a little bit. Yeah. So basically, the film is set in the Salton Sea. Have you guys been in that region at all, by any chance?
No,
Okay. So we went to. I used to do a lot of business trips to Vegas, and then other all kinds of cities in and around Nevada, California. We were at I forget the name of the mountain. There's a mountain with a cable car. You take it up. You have to wear like a light jacket. It's not like I just got back from Vancouver and I was in Canada and Alaska. That was bring your winter coat. That was bring your winter coat in May trip. But this was just bring a light jacket. So we take the cable car up, and there's a placard there. You could just see in the distance a little speck, the Salton Sea. But they had the whole history of it, how it accidentally filled up, It's like an accidental lake.
Yeah.
Saltwater lake in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's pretty wild. So they have, in the beginning, they always set it up in the sort of the geopolitical context of the time. There's a government base there. So they're doing atomic tests there, because you have to put that in there in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're also doing some parachute training, so they show that one guy, quote unquote, hitting the silk, the guy that sprints into the plane. And oh, okay. Well, they also in the preface, they also talk about how they had a little earthquake, and they even show some little cavern open up, but in 2 hours, everything is supposed to be back to normal. And then we have the guy parachutes in, they go out to pick him up, and he's not there. And then you get that great scene of the one guy's face. They got a guy with a really good face, because you actually see the shadow of the thing come up, and you have that look of absolute terror.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we meet our the base commander, played by Tim Holt, who was like a Western actor mostly.
Yeah.
So right when we meet him, he's like he explodes on someone on the phone. And then the one secretary there, the switchboard operator who's always talking to her mom, she said called him Iron Butt, but she called him Iron Heart. So they're establishing that he's like a tough guy and everything, but it's his first week. So then he goes out, and they recover the body, and they also, at that point they just recovered the body, and he also puts his hand in a whole bunch of goo.
Yeah.
And then they go back, they get a sample, they go back to the base, and that's where they take it to the scientist.
He puts it in a cigarette case, if I'm not, is what it looks like.
Yeah, that was a little weird, but I guess it worked.
It must have. I mean, they must have been like, why is this guy so full of nicotine? But I thought it was interesting when they did find the paratrooper, that it harkened back to that scene in Jaws. When you see the face underwater, that still to this day, freaks me out a little bit, even though, I'm nearly 50, but it reminded me a lot of that same scene, the way that they did the special effects on that.
Yeah, like in Jaws, it's coming. And in this, see, I think when I was a kid, because the first guy looked like shrunken and also like blackened, right?
Yeah.
And then some of the later victims didn't really look like that. They just looked shrunken. And I don't know if the effect was as good, but I always associated with him being like burned up too. And I think I was afraid of fire and electrocution when I was a kid. So I just probably made that up in my head. So when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, that's not really what happened. He just, sucked the life out of him pretty much. Yeah.
Like a little husk.
Right.
But I thought it was the movie got off to a pretty good start.
It does.
And then, let me just do a little something here. We have, there's the monster. And there's our hero. There's Tim Holt. And then he goes to the lab and he meets, who is it? Hans Conried plays Dr. Rogers. Of course, many people recognize his voice work from Disney.
Oh, man, so much.
I mean, it just jumps right out at you when you hear his voice. Yeah. And then one of the other doctors. There's a lot of other characters, the sheriff and everything. But this guy always like jumps out at me. The guy that plays Dr. Tad Johns, Max Showalter. Because he was actually, I know he was in the movie Niagara with Marilyn Monroe, but he was actually, he actually played Ward Cleaver in the pilot episode, Leave It to Beaver.
Oh.
It's weird because, Hugh Beaumont is.
He's Ward, yeah. Yeah,
he's Ward. Come on now. But so that's weird to see someone else as Ward, but he was okay. It's just that, Hugh Beaumont is iconic. Mm-hmm. So he's pretty good. And Joe was saying that Tim Holt was a real life cowboy. Hans was in Davy Crockett and the Alamo. Yeah, a lot of Disney movies. Yeah. And then so the secretary in there is played by Audrey Dalton, who plays Gail McKenzie, and then Mimi Gibson plays her daughter Sandy. So she was actually just at the Chiller Convention in North Jersey, like about about a year ago, and I couldn't go. It would have been cool to meet her for sure,
Yeah.
and have her sign my poster. But I
Right.
couldn't go. And apparently, she had a little. She was not one of the first ones, but she had a little problem with her parents, like taking her money as a child actress, and apparently, it didn't get like ridiculously bad, and they still, maintained a family relationship. But that's kind of one of the things she's known for. But anyway, so we got the dehydrated face. You've got all the goo. The one scientist, the Hans Conrad character, he's a little defensive about the radiation.
A little bit.
Yeah, we're not doing anything with radiation in there. And then, but he also mentioned he starts theorizing about I don't know if you guys caught this, a kraken.
Yes.
Kraken.
That cracked me up. A kraken. Do you think like nobody talked about it back then, so they didn't know how to pronounce it? I don't know.
Probably
Not as much anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was just like a theory. So then they go back out first of all, they put up, they declare like there's no swimming and all this stuff, and a couple people get irritated. At some point, they make a point to say it's going to be 117 degrees by 3:00. But then they go back out, right?
Yep.
And this is where the big confrontation happens when the commander goes out. And I thought it was kind of cool that a lot of movies, I think, they would there'd be a trip, and then they would go back, and then something would happen to someone else, but they just kind of hit the ground running. Like when they go out to recover the body, that's when they get attacked. Well, the body comes up on the one side, and then that's when the creature comes up. And like Laura, since you've just seen this recently, what did you think of that initial attack?
If you watched our our dollar store drive-in show, sometimes I fall asleep during movies, and so I was kind of in and out of consciousness sometimes.
A little bit here and there.
This, I saw like majority of it. So I did like the first scene, and like I was awake during that, and then kind of took a little snooze, and then just constantly like off and on. But I liked the movie. It has nothing, there's no reflection on the movie. It's just I was so tired by the end of the day. It was just it was rough.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I told Joel, I was like, you're probably gonna have to run this, because if I fell asleep during it.
I've been there. When I had my son watch all the original Universal movies, we went in order, and I used to have to work at 3:30 in the morning. So I remember starting The Mummy at like 7 at night. So for me, that's like 10:30 at night.
Oh yeah.
Woo! Like trying to stay awake, trying to keep him somewhat interested. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
And that one's a little slow.
Yeah, right. Exactly. A little slow. We probably could have started with like the Wolfman and maybe backtracked, but eventually he got into them. So he's never seen this one though, but he has watched a few older ones with me, like Thing from Another World and movies like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but
it was cool.
Yeah. Actually, first you see him underwater, like he's kind of peeping at them underwater. Did you think that was like a good? Yeah, right. They have all these like close-up shots, and then I like the shots because there's a whole underwater crew. There was an underwater film, director and everything. So I think they had some cutaway shots of just the human reactions too. There's like a couple pieces of seaweed hanging down, and I
mean, it was clever the way they did it, because obviously that creature under the water is just gonna. I mean, it's not gonna last. At least not back then.
Yeah.
So the way that they shot it and the way that they matched the lighting on it, it felt a lot like it. And especially if, when I was little, I was like, there's the monster. It's a pretty good effect, all things considered.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And as far as like showing it, I mean, like we said, they showed him in the trailer. He was on the poster. So, I think people knew what they were going to see. So why not just start out with, there he is. But then when he comes up on that boat, I thought that was, like I said, when I was a kid, like losing body parts and things like that scared me when I was a kid. So when he got hit in the eye, just didn't sit well with me.
It's still a little shocking.
It is.
You're like, he's not going to do that, is he? And no.
Yeah.
Every time.
Hans Conrad is like, go for the eye.
Right? You're like, why is Captain Hook yelling at that?
But we have Pat Masters in the chat. Hey, what's up, Pat Master? Joe says the sheriff is Gordon Jones, the original Green Hornet.
Oh.
And he was Mike the Cop in the Abbott and Costello show. I think I have the original Green Hornet cereal. I've been getting it. Joe's got me kind of interested in some old school cereal, so I'll have to check that out.
I dig some of those, yeah.
Yeah. And then Russell says, hey, Mr. Dan and friends. So yeah, I thought the effect was, so far in the very beginning, all the effects were pretty good. Oh, but wait, they also find like an egg, which they send a net down, they haul that up. Now, what did you guys think of that? I mean, that kind of looked like.
I mean, it's a little undefined, but it sets up for the climax.
Yeah.
So, it didn't have to be, because it could be whatever they wanted to
right,
be.
Right.
So, I felt like, considering it's 1957 and they're working on a pretty small budget, they pulled off a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, choosing Tim Holt to be your lead when you've got this slightly overweight, former cowboy in this role was kind of a risk, and in my opinion, it paid off.
Yeah, it kind of paid off. I think it fit the movie. His performance kind of like fit the movie. He had that he has this kind of clipped way of speaking.
Right.
A lot of it seems like a lot of the Western actors, when I would see them in other things, they would seem a little wooden. Yeah. But he's trying to be a hard ass.
Right.
I mean, he's, you know what I mean? When you're a teacher, you don't come in like a softie on the first day of school. Right.
Yeah.
So,
no.
Yeah. But and even snaps at the secretary, Gail, because she says, "Oh, I'm sorry about what happened." He's like, "Don't you dare say a word about this, young lady."
Yeah, but he still spends the 8 pesos on the pen at the restaurant.
Right, he does. Right.
Which is like $7 in 2024 money. It's an expensive pen.
Yeah. But he does find Sandy, the daughter, loses her ladybug, and he does find another one. So we start to get little glimpses of, hey, maybe there's a human in there after all.
Yeah, he was kind of punching above his weight class with her.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But back then, you kind of got hooked up with the lead no matter what he looked like, even if he was a little doughy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like when I closed my eyes, he sound like his voice was almost interchangeable with Ben Johnson from the Wild Bunch, Terror Train, Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has that same kind of manner of speaking. And here's the funny thing. He was born in LA, but he passed away in Oklahoma. Doesn't it seem like it would be the other way around?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
he just did enough Westerns, I'm guessing, that he just kind of it became affected in his speech.
Yeah, I guess so. Or maybe he moved when he was young. I don't really know. But, some of those guys actually had some practical background, and that's why they were picked for Western. Well, he was a cowboy, I guess.
Right.
Well, I guess back then California was, they filmed a lot of Westerns. They filmed everything in California. And so, parts of it were like cowboy country. But he was an actual cowboy.
I just realized, and this is just as I was thinking about this, I think the way that they logistically made the coupling make sense is that she had a baby, so therefore she had a kid, so that made her, more on league with him for 57. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Like, he's damaged good, so he can be a little, bigger.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Plus, it gave him a foil at the end.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Russell says he watched this when he was 4. Yep. I probably watched it when I was like 7 or 8. Joe says Ben Johnson was the man, a real life rodeo champion and John Wayne's buddy. Makes sense. Yeah. And then we also see that like her daughter gets dropped off towards the end of the day by the other lady who is pregnant and seems like a nice lady. So, gee, I hope nothing happens to her and her dreams. But and then her daughter likes to poke around and feed the rabbits and things, which comes into play later. But yeah, so so we have the big confrontation, and then the one guy doesn't make it underwater, and we see It's the husband of the babysitter, basically.
Yep.
And that I don't know how you guys felt about that. I thought the pinchers around the neck was pretty horrifying, but the actual effect of the face was, I don't know. It looked like it. Yeah, it was okay. It looked like a mask that was like desiccated, or they sunken in or caved in.
But I mean, again, they're working on a budget, so you do the best with what you got.
Yeah. And I don't know about you guys. When I was a kid, sometimes bad special effects like scared me more for some reason. Like,
I could see that.
Yeah, like there's a movie called Curse of Bigfoot. It's not good, but he's a guy in a wig, and then he's a guy in a gorilla suit, and then in one scene he's a paper mache head with one eyeball kind of bulging out, which
that sounds terrifying.
Scared little Mr. Dan.
I bet.
Yeah.
But is it more or less believable than The Shriek of the Mutilated?
I know of that movie, but I haven't actually seen it.
Oh, well, then you need to take some time and sit down on that one, and we'll have to discuss it.
That's what I've heard.
It's on the show.
Cool. And Russell says he subbed to you guys, and
Thank you.
Also The Killer Shrews is a classic with a young James Best. You know what? I thought of that movie today because I think when that movie, when they kind of set up the beginning part about like shrews are the most voracious animals on earth, you're kind of stifling a laugh. But later on, as they start to put together what these creatures are, and they talk about the actual like life cycle, he shows the film. There's the scientist shows the film, and then shows the Life magazine article, which was an actual article. So the film and the article were both real. The mollusks, there's certain types of mollusks that were aggressive and suck the fluids out of other creatures. And then they also talked about this incident where all these dormant fish eggs became alive overnight. So they were kind of like putting two and two together. Yeah. Like all of that was much more scary and believable than like the setup for The Killer Shrews or many, many other movies, I thought.
I mean, I'm sure that the elevator pitch was, all right, sea monkeys, but in real life.
Right.
I'm sure that's how they set it up.
Sea monkeys, but in real life?
But in real life, yeah. Like, instead of brine shrimp, they're giant mollusks.
Yeah. Right. And Russell says dogs in shrew costumes. Yep. Killer Shrews with Ken Curtis from Gunsmoke. Yep. Says Joe. Yeah. It's like I thought this whole creature was like heads above a lot of other essential creature concepts and designs from the time. But we'll get into that some more. But anyway, so now they have one back at the laboratory. They know that they're keeping it at a certain temperature.
Right. Okay.
So then they're skipping ahead a little bit. They're telling people not to go swimming. There's some conjecture and worry that if the creatures can get out because there's a whole canal system,
right,
and eventually they could get out into the Gulf. And then they're looking for like a survey map. So that's when they go visit the guy at the county museum who doesn't have any maps because he says this about 8 times because the bond issue failed. It was Proposition 14A failed, so they don't have space to store the maps.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they're doing like patrols. They find another victim. And actually earlier, let's back up. There was another when they were giving everyone the no swimming pitch. There was the one store owner and her daughter was getting ready to go out on the town.
Right.
And mom was like, saying, oh, she's going to go out to see that boyfriend. I don't like him. So again, that was something that was like, you knew that wasn't going to end well.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a victim. They found tons of goo. Again. And then also backing up a little bit, I thought it was pretty good when they came back from the mission and then the babysitter, I'll call her the babysitter. Obviously she had another function besides that, but she drives up. That was like actually pretty rough because they had to just pull her aside and tell her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we learned that the Gale character, she gets a little upset, and then the commander tries to console her, and she starts talking about her late husband. So I thought, what did you guys think at that point? Like, I thought everything was starting to get fleshed out pretty well.
I feel like anytime you can add some more depth to the character, it makes it more believable. And back then, especially in this type of film, it was more about, set up, payoff, and do it as cheaply as possible. So to actually have a character that you care about was a little bit harder to come by sometimes. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. And of course, as far as her vocation, she's the secretary.
Right.
It's the 50s. Either that or you're the daughter of the scientist, but in this case she was the secretary. But I thought overall she was a pretty good character. I mean, quite attractive to look at. Seemed like her character seemed like a really good mom. and then you have the daughter who is sneaking around
wanting to play with the lab bunnies.
Yeah, she's been told she can't go play with the rabbits, but she goes in and ends up turning the heat up because she thinks the little bunnies are cold. I thought that was pretty good. Mom's busy answering the phone and stuff, so that's going to come into play later. I like, at least I'll take her over those the little kids in like the Japanese monster movies, like the Gamera movies, that are walking around in the secret headquarters and like asking a bunch of annoying questions, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's with the super high pitched voices and
the super high pitched voices. They got like shorts on and a blazer. It's like really weird. It's like, I don't know. But she was, I thought she did a pretty good job as far as a child actress.
Unless it's the little kid in Space Monster Wagmagwi or whatever, however you say that, the Korean kaiju film, because he's peeing in the monster's ear and bringing it down. So,
Yeah, I got to check that out. I've seen some reviews of that. But
spoiler alert! Sorry about that.
That's okay. Hey,
it's definitely worth the viewing if you've not seen it. Then I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So then we've got and you guys can jump in anytime, but we have some they're like all the there's like probably like 24 different locks and access points. So you've got grumpy old guys chasing kids away. There's swimming, and the one guy says it's a bunch of nonsense. So that's like the last thing you should say in one of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets it. What did you guys think of that sort of like jump scare? Was that?
I was gonna say that's one of the that's got to be one of the earliest like jump scares in cinema.
Yeah.
And because I mean at that time it wasn't really a thing, so it was effective. Sorry, one of our dogs here is wanting to get in the way.
It's all good. All good.
That's Bailey.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, and it was like instant death, and it was kind of scary.
Yep.
I don't remember, like when I rewatched it, I didn't remember that from when I was a kid. I did remember the climactic battle, so I watched the whole movie. But I may have been like kind of doing this at some point. So they lock everything up, and then another one. I thought it was the same guy. There's actually two different guys. There's the one guy that's working like the internal locks. He hears the crunching noise, and one of them gets chopped in half. So then we see like a harder shell. So yeah. So now I, rewatching it this week, I was trying to remember that. I always thought that was like, and then eventually we see a whole bunch of them underwater.
Yeah.
I was thinking they were like eggs, but it's like two different things. Like, so where did life cycle wise, where did the hard shells come into play?
I don't know, because I had forgotten when I rewatched it again after having seen it as a kid. I'd forgotten about the one that gets crushed underneath the locks or whatever, which was kind of sad in my opinion. But yeah, I mean they're born. They seem to already be full size and moving around, but then. Yeah, I don't quite figure out where they get that. Is it like after the first molting or something? I mean,
yeah, right. It came on quick. They're not like hermit crabs. They're not already laying around because there's
exactly
there's nothing. There's not many. There's not a variety of life in the Salton Sea. So,
but they all have the exact same shape and size. Little shell for each one of them. So that's a good question. I don't think they ever really answer.
No, they didn't really. you know. And I just rewatching it, part of it today. It was actually a pretty good design, like, you know, like it looked like a giant shell. I mean, they put some work into that too for something you only saw fleetingly. But that's actually, when you said full size, they actually mentioned that some mollusks are kind of born full size because they're in a sack until they're born, and then they're full size. So that's actually kind of creepy in and of itself. So yeah,
that is creepy.
Well, now I never thought about that until now, and now every time I watch it again, I'm going to be questioning that and looking for some sort of a clue somewhere as to where the shell came from.
Yeah, because it was pretty fast. And then okay, well, we're going to get to the climax. Obviously, I think we know what happens to the one in the laboratory. But I was looking. I was like, is there a hint of a shell? No, there's really not. So the shells come into play at some point.
Magically.
So pretty much once the Hans Conrad character gets that like map from the guy comes back, the weirdo comes back. He comes back with his old map. Then he puts everything together, like in one revelation. Like, oh, there must be a whole system of underground rivers,
right?
And you know, here's what we need to do. So eventually, they can see it from the air, like it's spilling out into like a canal, and they kind of narrow down where they are.
And they make it sound like they're going to be enough of them to really do some serious damage pretty quickly, which also, you know, is impressive considering how big they are and, you know, the requirements for them to grow and be born, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You know, they always say that they're going to get loose into the ocean and take over the world. I don't know. There's like sharks and whales and things, but okay. You know, we'll just say that they can challenge the world.
Sure. It's in the name, man. Come on.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. And Mayanne is here. Hello, Mr. Dan. Guest in chat. Hey, Mayanne. Mayanne's not in California. Mayanne's on the West Coast, though. Anyway. So, yeah, at one point, as they're doing the shore patrols, then that's when they go to the Mexican restaurant in Mexico.
Yep.
Which is crazy because I didn't realize, I guess pretty sure that was the closest I've ever been to Mexico. I didn't realize when we were down there, I didn't realize how close we were. But they slip down to Mexicali, have a little dinner, even though he already had his lunch, or he had dinner.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like eating a sandwich, and she says, "Have you eaten?" And he says, "No." And then he looks at the sandwich like, you know.
Yeah, and he's already got a banana peel on the plate, and you know, he's obviously had a full lunch, or an apple core. Yeah. But the things you do for love.
Oh, wait, Man's on the East Coast? Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
Okay, sorry, man. Thought you were on the West Coast. Yeah, but so yeah, they kind of get a little bit closer. They have that whole thing with the pen, and I guess the point is he's maybe not such a bad guy after all. But I guess there's, you know, on the way to getting hooked up, and maybe he might not pass his next fitness test. He might have to, or get a bigger uniform top. I'm not sure, but anyway, it was fun.
Eating 2 dinners, you know, or 2 lunches.
Yeah. So anyway, they find out where the sort of the what do you call underground nest is. And then it threw me off when he was in the suit, though, because he didn't have his hat on for a second. I was like, oh, that's him. He's actually diving down. He's doing like the Captain Kirk thing, right? You know, I'm going to go myself with the other guy played by Max Showalter. So they go down to dispose of the creatures. And there's some little snag, some miscommunication there. And I think that's because the Dr. Todd, played by Max Showalter, he survived earlier and the other guy didn't, and then he wanted to go back and kill it, and he's a little guilty, and so they finally blow these things up, and then he says, "Oh, sorry about that little miscommunication," and then he's like, "Oh, it's fine," and then they shake hands, and then what does he say to the scientist? Like, "Oh, he's not such a bad guy after all," or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. But I think it was like they were really proving that point that, he was a decent guy underneath the tough exterior, and the other guy felt like he contributed something,
Right.
But of course, we have the one in the laboratory, which I think are some of the best effects in the film, really.
And it had a nice full lunch too with all the rabbits.
Yeah. Wait, did we see any like empty rabbit cages or anything?
Oh yeah. There's a whole wall of rabbit cages.
Yeah.
And when they go in there, the first thing they do is they kind of pan across the lab, and they show that there's all of the bunny cages are open. And they've been ripped open, and there's like hay coming out and like fur.
Oh.
And so that's why I always call that one Lenny, because he loved the rabbits so much.
Right. Yeah. But I love the fact that I like that they had one that was fully on land, because we've only seen like parts of it sticking up with some pretty decent effects.
Which how is it coming up in the water on the boats? I always wondered that too.
Yeah.
It's not tall.
Yeah.
It's like Godzilla in the middle of the ocean.
It's tiny. It's tiny little bottom feet. We're like, treading water like crazy.
Like hell, just treading. But yeah, it is nice to see him, because then you also kind of get a scale of the size.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that one was fairly young, but it was at least like 7 or 8 feet tall, maybe.
Yeah, it was like polar bear size. I mean,
right,
it was pretty big, and that relatively small head when you see the whole thing. But I thought the whole thing worked pretty well. I think I read that they had some problems with it moving. That it didn't quite move as much as they wanted it to, but I think it pretty much moved enough for the scene. The face it was kind of creepy looking, because you had the little pinchers, and you had the middle part.
Yeah,
I mean, as long as they were cheating that you didn't see the bottom, they cheated by having it behind stuff.
Yeah.
If you see pictures of the whole creature with that, you can kind of, the illusion is a little gone, but with that not being seen, as far as it was stretched out down the lab a ways,
Yeah. But I mean, overall, it's a really pretty good creature.
Yeah.
So of course, what's her name? Gail has to grab Sandy. They retreat into the bathroom or closet, and her solution is just to wait, essentially, because she can't boost Sandy out of the window. And meanwhile, the commander's coming back. The conversation on the way back is pretty funny. He's like, "Do you want to eat?" "Oh no, I had some toast earlier." "Oh." You must like that. You must be full then, I guess, right?
That works.
But it's a good thing they didn't stop to eat. So they get back, and the Tim Holt character, Commander Twillinger, he goes to work on this thing. Oh, he runs over to the wall. What were you guys hoping he was going to grab?
Oh, the axe, obviously.
The axe. There's an axe and a fire extinguisher.
Yep.
But he went for ultimately he made the smarter choice, probably. Either that, or if he would have blinded it first, perhaps, in both eyes, that maybe they would have got away with it. But missed opportunity.
Russell Mann, like my shirt. Thank you very much. Joe says that scene was pretty powerful. Yep. And I'm thinking, like, okay, I know it's the 50s, but we've already had the spear in the eye. We've had people like desiccated and shrunken. We could have done with a few chops of the axe. I mean, just a few chops. It gets he drops it, and then he picks up the fire extinguisher, but he just goes right to the fire extinguisher. I guess the implication is it doesn't like cold, because they've already told us so many times how hot it is there.
Right.
So the thing is like crashing into the skylight, and then that runs out, and then he grabs he touches his hand against the hose that I guess is like running the refrigeration for the whole lab. Yeah, I took that.
I don't know if it was like Freon or what it was supposed to be, but it was something cold.
Yeah.
I'm definitely thinking it was cold, not hot. He pulls it out. He's aiming it at him. He even has to grab a rag to put around his hands, because I guess it's so cold. and he basically is like freezing the thing when the scientist comes back with like three or four sailors with rifles, and they put an end to it, and it crashes into the equipment. I mean, I thought it was definitely a pretty good ending.
Yeah, they shoot the crap out of it at the end there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Once he's already done most of the damage.
Right. But and if we think about it, up to this point, they haven't had a chance to shoot at it really.
Right.
This is the underwater scenes and the scenes where they only see it briefly. In a lot of these movies, it's like, oh, our bullets have no effect. And I've always thought, like, really? They wouldn't, huh? I kind of think they probably would.
Yeah.
They kind of avoid that, and you don't get that until the very end. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good ending. And then you have a little postscript there, of course, where they say, oh, now you can go, because Sandy wants to go swimming earlier, and they're like, oh, sorry, no swimming.
So now you can go swimming again? It's like, can I? It's like,
right. Yeah.
Oh, shucks. So hit my mic.
Maybe stop by the pet store and get her some new rabbits. I don't really know.
Right.
Luckily, she didn't see what happened to them, but she's going to have questions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So many questions.
Yep. But yeah, overall, a pretty good, definitely a pretty good, one of my favorite monster designs, actually. Do you want to show your drawing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've been, along with the project she's been talking about, that's my, first of many that I'm doing. I was drawing just a series of some of my favorite B-movie kind of monsters, and he was one of the first ones I did.
It's definitely pretty cool.
Which I just cut and pasted on here just for the sake of having the notes, but I've got larger versions that I've been working on of like Robot Monster and this creature, and then I'm drawing a blank now on the other ones, but
Sorry.
We have our other dog is down here, so sorry.
It's okay. Quite all right. So it's like a lot of the lesser known B movies and things like that.
Yeah. Which since I just finished it, I'm gonna be posting it here at some point. But these were his foot's caught. That's what she's trying to tell me.
It's wrapped around the light behind us.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are just larger portrait versions of them instead of just little versions in a big group. So
okay.
But I'd share them with you, but I don't have my iPad over here, so
it's fine. We'll see him eventually.
That's right.
Well,
I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, if you go on if you look for posters or shirts, they have all the more well-known ones, but there's so many great B movie monsters out there.
Yeah.
That's kind of been the fun of it, is that some people have said it's like
Where's Waldo kind of thing, but with monsters.
Right. Yeah.
Looking at the first print I did of it, and she was sitting there and she's like, this is so and so, and this, who's this? And we were going over kind of but it's all in black and white, so it's
cool.
kind of a throwback.
Very cool. And I do like the way that they put the eyes in the front.
Yeah.
Yes.
With eyes can ruin a creature. Like you had Godzilla. They eventually made his eyes a little more like open and cartoony.
Yeah.
To appeal to the kids. I think Creature from the Black Lagoon, which they just did on the Mad Bloods channel. Well, actually, I joined them. They were nice enough to invite me on. They just did that a couple weeks ago. I think in the second and third movies, they played around with the eyes.
He got a little bit more humanoid as the film series went on.
Yeah, and it looks a little goofy. But the eyes on this creature are really good. They're like just like these soulless,
Yeah. There's no pupil really. It
was smart. It was like the eyes can ruin a creature.
They're almost like a milky pupil instead of a black one.
Right.
So,
right.
I assume because they're thinking if it's underwater and it's dark, maybe it can't see as well.
Right.
But it's very effective in that regard for sure. Because you're right. There are some creatures, especially like some of the later Godzilla ones, like in Godzilla 2000, or even in the most recent one, where it's terrifying. When you see the way that they did his eyes in some of those later versions.
Yeah.
Versus the one where he's doing his victory dance.
Right.
they're fun, but it's not.
Yeah. No, they're fun, but they're more for the kids and stuff. Yeah. And then you got like the decision they made with the xenomorph and alien was to take away the eyes, because apparently in the Giger in the book had like actual eyeballs somewhere on there, so it's almost more like a visor, motorcycle helmet, kind of a look.
That's probably my favorite creature to draw as a xenomorph, just because there's so much going on, and it's just a beautiful design. And that one still is terrifying to me. That whole series is fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites too.
Yeah, I remember in high school there was a kid. He would get in he would never come to school. He would get in trouble all the time. The truant officers would have to go out and find him. But he was obsessed with the movie Alien, and he did like this pencil drawing. He would be like hunched over forever doing this pencil drawing, but he got every little detail right. All the little vertebrae and everything.
And that man was me. You, not me. I've been to New Jersey, but I never lived there.
Oh, okay. And Karen is here. Spirits and Screams. Hi, Dan and Newlyweds and friends. Hey, Karen. Hope all is well. So anyway, I wanted to mention also, this was directed by Arnold Lavin. I don't really know so much about his filmography, but I've actually been going back and watching episodes of The Rifleman. I just started at season 1. So I've watched about 25, 30 of them. And that was Sam Peckinpah was involved in that in the early part of it.
Really?
Yeah, writing and directing. And there's even one episode with Warren Oates is in it.
Wow.
Sam Peckinpah. But then he started to transition away, and then Arnold Lavin took over a lot of the episodes. Yeah.
Because Wild Bunch is still one of my favorite, speaking of Warren Oates, and Sam Peckinpah is still one of my favorite Westerns.
Yeah. And Ben Johnson. Yeah.
Well, there you go. See, it all comes back together. All they need is a little kid going, Shane, and we'll be good.
Yeah. But I mean, I thought he did a pretty good job with this. Overall, I thought it was well paced. I don't think they had a lot of like filler scenes or anything like that.
Considering, he's mostly known as a television director, I thought he handled it well. And I felt like the script, it always feels a little short to me, and that's coming from a kid who grew up watching it, as a 6-minute film strip. It still always feels like it deserves just like 10 minutes more of something, because it always just feels really short. But I guess that's the reason it's a B movie monster instead of the Blob.
Right. Well, now as far as monster type films, how do you guys think it like stacks up to movies like you got the giant spider, the tarantula, the scorpion, them? Like where does it? So on IMDb for Tim Holt, it says he was semi-retired and he came back for the subpar creature film, Monster Changed the World. I was like, boo.
Yeah, boo.
No, it's not subpar. Stop it.
Yeah.
But it does have that B movie label. Like, is it like how does it compare to like a movie like Them? Do you guys think?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's right there with it. I mean, I feel like some of the advertising probably hurt it a little bit, like we had talked about earlier, but I think it's right kind of on that a thin little line where it kind of treads both sides of the fence, because it's not quite long enough and doesn't quite have enough cachet to be, on the higher end of the spectrum, but it's also, it's not Robot Monster, or it's not, like you mentioned Bill, like a Bill Rebane, like like that level where it's fun and it's entertaining, but it's never going to be high art. Right. So, I feel like it's just right there. It's not quite either one. It's just right in the middle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of love for it just from nostalgia, if nothing else. It's got a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess it just doesn't. I'm blanking on his name. James Whitmore. It doesn't have like a James Whitmore level guy like Them.
Right.
But and maybe the creature was too gross for some people back then. I don't know. It's possible. I mean, giant ants are scary for sure. Yeah. But they're ants and they're identifiable. And this was like a what now?
But I mean, at least you can see it. It's not like the Beast from the Haunted Cave where, you can't even really see the monster.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it deserves some credit, especially for the fact that they did such a good job with the effects.
Yeah.
That it deserves a little more love. So I'm glad that we're able to do something like this and maybe get some people to watch it that maybe haven't ever heard of it. And I think, we were talking about this beforehand, but, I've got the Kino Lorber version of it, and it's just such a nice transfer. They did a really good job with making it look nice and crisp and not brand new, but as nice as it's probably going to get.
Yeah.
So if anybody's out there and looking to watch it, it's inexpensive and a good way to check it out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would probably go that way. I do love these midnight movie collections. They're just kind of fun, and I kind of like to see what they pair up.
Yeah.
When I saw you, because check out the Newlydeads channel, everyone. Joel just opened up The Terror from Beyond Space today.
Yep.
If I had to do it over, I'd probably get them individually. I'm thinking that your version of the monster that challenged the world's a little nicer than this one. But I don't know how you guys feel like certain movies. Like I don't know that everything needs a 4K. How do you guys feel about that? Like, especially like with older films?
I mean, you're probably right. A lot of the transfers, and I've heard a lot of positive and negatives. I listened to Quentin Tarantino's Video Archives podcast, and he's made a case for, making transfers that are directly from, like the VHS used to be, directly from the film, instead of doing what they do now with like positive, negative transfers or whatever. But for me, I mean, I'm happy with Blu-ray as being a good quality especially for something like this. I just got Reptilicus in 4K from Vinegar Syndrome. I haven't watched it because we don't have a 4K player yet, but something like that where it's kind of the colorized version of this. I think it'd be nice to see it that way, but does it really need it? I don't know. Probably not.
Right.
But I'm kind of a stickler that I'm kind of a snob now that even DVDs are. I don't buy DVDs anymore because for me it feels like it's not VHS, but it's not. I don't know. I love seeing it on Blu-ray for some reason.
Right.
And that may just be a perception that I have.
Sure.
But
it's your preferred.
Right, it's my preferred viewing medium.
Yeah.
Like vinyl versus CDs or cassettes.
We have a friend who watches everything on VHS, like all VHS all the time,
and refuses to watch anything else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And speaking of the midnight, like the twofers like that, they have I want to say it's American Genre Film Archives got some sets where they do the drive-in mode where you can have the stuff in between and the old grain on it, and it feels like you're watching it. If you sit down and just go back to back, it's like going to the drive-in, which is fun.
I have a kung fu double feature that's supposedly like that, but I've waiting to set up my outside projector.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, fun.
I'm thinking if I'm going to do that, I got to do it outside. So one of these nights.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, especially as it starts to get darker earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a friend who did that. What was it, last year?
Yeah.
That we went and we watched the Neverending Story.
Yeah.
Outside, which I'm not a huge fan of that movie, but just seeing it on a screen outdoors with friends, it just hits a little different, Plus the film is kind of a misnomer because it ends.
Yeah, right. I mean, having a sequel to me was always kind of a ripoff.
That song stuck in my head
again.
The Neverending Story.
And Ginger Ninja is here. Hey, Ginger.
Hey.
Ninja. Yep. So we got Canada. We have Canada and Australia in the chat. Awesome.
Speaking of which, I've got my Shamble Buddha shirt on since
cool.
Raul couldn't join us. I figured we should represent.
Oh, awesome.
And since we got Joe in the chat, we got to represent the Mad Bloods too.
Yep. Got it. Definitely do that. Yeah, actually. Well, listen. Eventually, what I'd like to do is have almost like a weekly kind of hangout. So July and August are funny because I babysit my granddaughters a couple days a week, and they're in a different state. So I don't know for July and August only.
Yeah.
And in September, it's back to school, back to like more of a routine. So yeah, we definitely want to do that. So we'll definitely have to have you guys come back on again.
I'd love to.
With
I
the
promise I won't fall asleep during the next movie. Sorry about that.
It's all right. You get to watch it again. I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm excited about.
I want to go back and watch and look at find those rabbit cages.
Yes.
How did I miss that? I mean, I just watched it earlier this week, and then when I was rewatching part of it today, that's when I really noticed the detail on the shells. So it's funny. I think a lot of times with some of these older movies, you're kind of like looking at the screen. You're not really like picking up everything. You're like, because that's part of the fun of these movies. You don't have to think too hard.
Right.
I mean, but sometimes it's funny. You do miss some stuff.
I mean, it could be like my ex-sister-in-law who said that she didn't like watching black and white movies because she couldn't tell anybody apart. Like she couldn't tell like the scenes apart, like the people or the scenes, because it was black and white. It just, for whatever reason.
Okay, well, maybe she had a really bad TV. I don't know.
I don't know. I always was confused by that, but hey,
yeah. Well, I used to watch, and when I worked in the video store, I would throw on movies. Sometimes I would throw on all kinds of different movies, including movies that were intentionally shot in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was ever tried Raging Bull. That might have been a little too risky. If any little kids came in.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have people come in and say, "Oh, I always hated this expression. Oh, that's a moldy oldie." And I was like, "Well, it's from 1975, lady, but whatever."
Yeah, moldy oldie.
That's funny. I worked at a video store too.
That doesn't surprise me.
I know.
We can tell. I didn't know you did though, so now I'm learning something new.
Yeah, I worked at a couple different ones, but not Blockbuster. No.
Yeah, same here. I worked at a local video store. Same time I was working at a record store, so I was living the life.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, multimedia. That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, I rarely went to Blockbuster, but I did have to go to Blockbuster for Godzilla 2000. It's the only place that had it.
Oh.
And the guy was like, "You're getting this?" He was like, "Nobody rents this." I was like, "Oh, I finally found it here. Of course I'm getting it."
I'm the guy. I'm renting this.
You're the one.
Right?
But video store days were fun. Video store days were fun. But so for sure we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
now we curate our own video stores. I mean, if you saw the shelves that I've got here,
it's a lot.
Luckily I have a wife that it supports my habit, so
it's a fun hobby for you.
It gets me through, and and then it's at my own little video store. You know what it's like.
Yeah. Well, there's a furniture store going out of business right up the street. And I have a lot of times I have my little Prius, but for reasons I decided to take my son and his friends to the airport today. I have the larger Lexus. So my wife isn't into movies like I am, but she does like organization. So if she comes home and sees that I've got a new shelf that fits like, 2/3 of my collection, she'll be so happy. So
nice.
I might see if I can do that tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Well, she likes organization and the movies, so it works out well because it keeps mine stuck in line.
Right. Yeah. But and of course I'll make a video about it if I do that. But
of course.
Yeah.
I'll want to see what you do personally, but
yeah. Well, no, yeah. And eventually I'm going to get my son in here. The idea is for us to both sort of work in here because he's majoring in film.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Cool.
And sort of like make this like our little studio film room to film things in. Sometimes I'm upstairs, sometimes I'm downstairs, that kind of thing. So
very cool.
Because you guys got a great setup on your show and everything. It's awesome.
Oh,
thanks.
It's right over here in the living room.
It's in our living room, yeah.
We're gonna redo the basement, and then we're gonna have a dedicated area that is set up a little bit more permanently, but we try to make it something that's a little bit kind of fun to look at.
Yeah.
Cool.
So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, everybody. Well, this was fun. If you haven't seen this film, and you guys have any final messages, any final
I don't think so.
to say about the film, other than you should see it.
Yes,
That's right.
Check it out.
It's underloved, not as well known, but pretty darn good overall.
Yes. Agreed.
Sure.
I'm a fan.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out and helping me out tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I will talk to you guys. Can hang on for a second, but
Yeah, sure.
I'll talk to everybody later. I do have a video coming out. Physical Media Friday video for sure will be out on Friday. Maybe even another video in between, and then of course Martial Arts Mondays videos every Monday. But thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye.